by Cardano with Roto Experts and the Fantasy Sports Network with some NFL trade fantasy analysis. On Tuesday, Tim Wright was traded from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers along with an undisclosed draft pick to the New England Patriots for offensive guard Logan Mankins. The Patriots proved that they were serious about adding another receiving threat at tight end, sending the six-time Pro Bowler Mankins to Tampa in exchange for Wright, who impressed as the 13th scoring tight end with 54 catches for 571 yards and 5 touchdowns as a rookie last season. Now the Bucs were loaded at tight end with Brandon Myers, Luke Stocker, and second-round pick Austin Jenkins, and Wright will provide a much-needed insurance policy should, or should I say when, injury befalls Rob Gronkowski again. Now my first thought here was, why the hell would the Patriots remove part of Brady's fortress? And then I thought about it. You know, they're pretty good at this stuff. They were right moving Seymour and Moss, and I'll suspect that they'll be right moving Mankins too. Better be a year early than a year late. But hey, what do I know? We've got the all-in kid Jake Ciely on the line with us to talk a bit about this trade and the fantasy outlook for Tim Wright and what this news says or doesn't say about Rob Gronkowski. Jake, buddy, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. So, you know, what does this say about Rob Gronkowski, first of all? Does this change your outlook on him? Does this mean that the Pats have their Aaron Hernandez back and Gronk will see more single coverage? And are you moving him up in your rankings, or do you now feel less certain about his health? And are you moving him down in your rankings, or is this not an event for you at all? What are you doing with him?
So when it comes to Gronkowski, it actually pretty much is a non-event for me because I already had Gronkowski as my number 2 tight end Bolton standard in PPR because I think everything points to Gronkowski being ready. At worst, it sounds like he might be less than 100% for week 1, but otherwise everything looks good and on track. And I'm not so sure this really says much about his outlook and their outlook of his health because really you're talking about 2 different types of tight ends, really. Gronkowski and Tim Wright aren't in the same mold. Tim Wright is actually very much in the mold of Aaron Hernandez, who used to be there for other reasons he's not now, but he's very much a move tight end, and he's going to play a different role and be out there for 2 tight end sets or just another option for Tom Brady to throw to. So I think that this increases Tim Wright's outlook, obviously, which we can talk about, but as for Gronkowski, I think that he's pretty much locked in as the number 2. We know he's the only one that can challenge Jimmy Graham if he's out there for 16 games. And I just think this is more of, like you said, the Patriots know when to start moving people, and they seem that they didn't need Logan Mankins anymore. They have a replacement for him already.
Yeah, now, so are you looking at this from the Patriots' standpoint it was more of a strategic thing with their offense and they wanted that second tight end, more of he's brought in to possibly be insurance or a possible replacement for Gronkowski?
I think it's a little bit of a mix of both. I think it is they want some options in that offense. Obviously, Aaron Dobson is a big piece that they expect to step forward this year, but he's had injury issues so far in the preseason. And then, of course, Danny Amendola hasn't been able to stay on his field for his entire career. So after Julian Edelman, there's a lot of questions out there. Cameron Tompkins hasn't put together any type of consistency. So you have Gronkowski with his own concerns of health. Hopefully he can be out there for 16 games. We know what Edelman can do, great in the PPR league. But after that, the Patriots have a ton of questions. So really, if anything, this just kind of gives them another fallback option. Maybe Dobson doesn't get back to 100% immediately. Amendola misses time again, as always. So this really kind of gives them back to the old Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski type of offense that they used to run and had so much success with. And like you said a few minutes ago, is it really kind of open up Gronkowski to see less double or even triple coverage because there's just more people they have to account for. It really kind of gets them back to where they were 2 years ago.
Right. So now we move on to Tim Wright. And where did you have him before? He had a wonderful year for a rookie. Where did you have him before, and what changes do you foresee yourself making in your rankings for him now in what you perceive to be his new role with his new team?
You know, it's funny. I didn't even have him as a wide receiver third. I said tight end 2 before this happened because, like you talked about at the top, there's a ton of options out there in Tampa Bay, and they drafted a 6'5" monster in Austin Jenkins. So not that he's going to see immediate success because a lot of times rookie tight ends especially struggle to make an impact in year 1, but they had plenty of options out there, and I had him low just because of that, just because I wasn't sure of how they were going to use him. Because if you looked at last year, you have 13th tight end, and he did really good as a rookie, but there was just so much uncertainty of what they were going to do. So now you move him into New England, and honestly, he could pretty much jump him all the way up into the top 15, in my opinion. Because
really?
I think he falls. Yeah, I think he falls into that tier of the Charles Clay, Heath Miller, Travis Kelce, Tyler Eifert. All those guys kind of in that conversation of they have upside, but there's still questions that we're not positive of. And I would consider taking him as my number 2 tight end. Obviously not as my number 1. I think anybody starting to think that he can post Aaron Hernandez numbers is getting way overboard. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think his floor is what he did last year, and he was the 13th tight end. So Charles Clay in PPR league I like a lot more. Tim Wright, obviously, in the standard, but that's kind of the area where I'm looking at. Depending on who I have as my first tight end, and I'm looking for upside, I definitely consider drafting him because you could see him put up similar numbers to, you just looking at last year, similar numbers to somebody who barely cracked the top 10, but Martellus Bennett, who's 60-plus catches, 750 yards, and 5 touchdowns, he could easily do that, and possibly even eclipsing the touchdowns, which would move him into the top 10. So there's potential there. But he's still in that same group. I wouldn't draft him as a tight end 1. And honestly, on a completely other note too, is if you own Tim Wright right now, maybe you're in a really deep league, or even you drafted him as your tight end 2, I'd start fielding offers because right now might be the highest you're going to get for him because there's a chance he doesn't succeed in New England. It's not a guarantee. And right now, you might get more than anybody else would ever be willing to offer you, especially if he starts out slow the first 2 weeks.
Right now, if you had 2 tight ends and they were both on the same team for your fantasy team, would you take the 2 tight ends that are now in New England or the 2 tight ends in San Diego?
I would definitely take the 2 in New England, no question about it. Mostly because they're watching Ladarius Green over the past couple weeks of the preseason, and it looks like the most of his damage is going to be coming in between the 20s. Antonio Gates is still the red zone option, and even last game, you didn't see a lot of targets or even a ton of snaps when Philip Rivers was on the field. And I think that as much as we're expecting Green to eclipse Gates at this point in his career, I still think Gates is enough in that mix as a red zone option for that team that I slid Ladarius Green down a little bit over the past. I have him at lower tight end 2 now, just because the upside's there, but I just don't know if maybe we're looking for 2015 Ladarius Green. So I would take the Patriots tight end all day long.